Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission and Rare Gem Productions to build a healthier St. Louis. Power up with the positive. Learn more at oneraregem.com. That's ONERAREGEM.com.
Support for Alive and Well STL comes from Beyond Housing, helps entire communities become better places to live. Learn more at beyondhousing.org.
The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL with Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission.
We are joined in the studio by Dr. Huldah Blamoville, pediatrician and activist at St. Louis Children's Hospital and our Children's Clinic, and president of Mound City Medical.
Well, St. Louis has been a shocker to me after living so many places, thinking that maybe we're on the brink of kind of catching up at this particular point in time. The changes that I have seen have not been that dramatic. Some of the attitudes are gradually changing, but they're not changing fast enough. Mm-hmm. And this is a bother to a person who's been in this world for the length of time that I've been here.
You have had an incredible career in healthcare and beyond, and in particular in healthcare here in St. Louis. As we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, I'm so pleased to be speaking with you, Dr. Blamoville.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. So, as your introduction, would you please give us your vision of what it means to you personally to be alive and well in St. Louis?
Personally, I have thought about this since the last year or so after the Ferguson ordeal and whatnot. And one of my inspirations now has been Dr. James Whitaker, who I was talking about previously, who's going to be 100 years old. And if you read his article in the newspaper, his biggest concern when he retired on May 1st was, what am I going to do now? And basically I say that because one thing that I can see in St. Louis, we all need to kind of pull together and get our young people in general, to have visions of what they want to do, wanting to be productive inside the community, their community and other communities too. And so this is what I'm hoping is the turnaround now for St. Louis.
Alive and Well STL.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am Bethany Johnson-Javois, host of Alive and Well STL and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission.
Morning.
Good morning. We are joined in the studio by Dr. Huldah Blamoville, a pediatrician and activist at St. Louis Children's Hospital and our Children's Clinic, and president of Mound City Medical. As we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, I'm so pleased to be speaking with you, Dr. Blamoville.
Thank you.
You have had an incredible career in healthcare and beyond, and in particular in healthcare here in St. Louis, and I'm hearing around the world. Is that true?
Yes, around the world. I came here to St. Louis maybe a little more than 40 years ago, after practicing in New York, after practicing in London, after spending some time in East Africa practicing there.
So we need to thank you first for your career-long commitment for improving the health of children and people who need help. And thank you for being here today in your busy schedule. You spent significant portion of your investment of time here in St. Louis. Can you paint a picture for us of what you've seen change and what you've seen happen, both positive and not so positive?
Well, St. Louis has been a shocker to me after living so many places, thinking that maybe we're on the brink of kind of catching up at this particular point in time. The changes that I have seen have not been that dramatic. Some of the attitudes are gradually changing, but they're not changing fast enough. Mm-hmm. And this is a bother to a person who's been in this world for the length of time that I've been here. I'll go into this because I feel that here we are in 2015. We had the Ferguson, and I went to the Ferguson area to speak with the school personnel to set up this science initiative for the children there. 7 times while going there in the morning before my office, I've been stopped by the police. That shouldn't happen in 2015. And remember, I told you that I was around. I've been arrested, and I told this one time I've been arrested twice, but a long time ago in the airport in Nairobi, where they mistook me for Angela Davis. And so here I've been to jail for that, even though I had a valid passport. So that is something that here in 2015, they look at someone and figure, well, you don't belong here at 7:30 in the morning going to a meeting, but 7 times.
7 times.
7 times since.
Okay, so Dr. Blamoville, write a social prescription for this region. What needs to be happening to shift this environment based on what you're seeing and experiencing here?
I think that you've got to get the churches, you've got to get the schools, you've got to get all the training places where people train, and you have to start early, and you've got to start telling them that we are all people. Mm-hmm. And we have to stop seeing people as being those people. If you don't start from the get-go, it's going to go on and on and on.
So when you're treating a child or his or her family, what do you see that keeps that family from reaching alive and well?
The main thing I see is not listening to advice and then going back and saying, well, so-and-so did this, or I heard so-and-so and so. And if you don't listen now, and I tell that to families, I tell that to children, I tell it to the parents, if you don't listen, you can't move ahead. We as doctors now, to keep our license valid, we have to take continuous training no matter how long you've been out of school, and always have more than is actually needed to retain a license, because if I'm practicing, if I'm doing something, I want to know what is the top information, what is the necessary information at that time. And as soon as we can kind of get that through people's population's head, that listen before you go ahead and say, well, this is what I'm going to do. I go into nutrition, just gave a seminar on nutrition. It is ridiculous now that all of a sudden, what we've been preaching, now they're going to have more healthy chicken with less antibiotics in it. They're going to now, the size of New York, I go to New York, you can't buy, a 32 ounce, but you can buy it here in St. Louis. Then we have the highest incidence of diabetes. We have all of these other problems that's going on. So listen and learn.
What do you think, based on your work, is the biggest toxic stressor that you're seeing? Because we're talking about healthcare, but you really deal with the whole person and their environment. So what's exacerbating some of these issues that are showing up in your doctor's office?
I used to say it was the TV that we didn't have it. I grew up in the time where there wasn't any TV. You went to school, you went to church, you took your kid, if you're entertainment, they'd pack us up and take us to the museum in New York. I know every museum backwards and forwards by the time I was 5, 6 years old.
And the radio was big then, too.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And the things that we listened on the radio, there was the Lone Ranger or something like that. Nowadays, I think that they see things on TV or in the videos or whatever, and then they want to imitate. I think too many people in this age actually think that this is reality and want to live their lives like that. I think, yeah. So that's a big part of it. And then when the parent or the people that are taking care of the kids live life like that, kids think that it's normal.
Well, I experience you as a straight shooter. So I want you to do the same thing here on the radio station. What are your tips for telling individuals how to get out of whatever they're in? Physical, emotional, trauma, whatever it is. What do you say to them?
What I say to them, I'm trying to bring the young lady here to St. Louis who went after her son in Baltimore. I was up there in D.C., so I went to one of the demonstrations in Baltimore before the actual funeral, so I wasn't there when they erupted. But when I saw her on TV, this reminded me of what used to be done, that some of the things that need to be done, parents need to set their standards, need to tell their kids, this is what you need to do. Right now, I hear too many parents saying to me, well, you've got to give them some freedom. But you've got to set some standards, and not only calling on my fellow physicians, but I keep in track with some of the pastors here in this particular area, because they have to be involved with some of that too.
Well, thank you for calling on pastors and preachers and leaders and family and mothers. Make such a difference. Fathers definitely impact, but it's not even the fear of the mother. It's the way fear is kind of used in the Bible. It's reverence. It's respect for. And I know I had that. I used to think, if my dad saw me right now, what would he do? Because he used to pop up. I went to school 3.5 hours away, and I would always think 3.5 hours away, he could be around that corner. And just that thought of accountability and not wanting to disappoint or hurt really influenced my behavior as a teen. And I think you're right. The restoration of that kind of respect.
That's right.
And that anticipation that my mother might be behind me, which is what happened in that video, is a really good point. You know, anything else that, as you're sharing your story and you've got wisdom and you've seen so much, you know, what is your hope for the future for this region? You seem like you might be a little bit on the side of something might actually happen, but what are your thoughts?
I'm glad that I'm still around and I'm on staff at WashU and SLU. And what I want, and I'm working for this right now. Years ago, when people were in the nursery, there was some education on how to take care of your baby, what to expect, etc. They don't do it now. They haven't done it for quite a few years. I am told by the people on over at the hospitals and university that it's not consumer friendly. They used to have, the nurse used to go in, or someone would go in and say, well, this is what you do with your baby, and you'd have to take them, and you have to read to them, you have to do this. They don't do that anymore. And I'm hoping that before I get out of this life, that I'll get them to bring some of that back in, because if you start early, you're going to be able to get more success.
So as we wrap up, is there anything else you think is important to say straight to the community that we need to hear from you?
Parents, get involved. That's what needs to be done. I know that it is not, I'm too busy, I hear it all the time. But doctor, you don't understand. I hear that all of the time. But the parents have to be involved. It's my opinion, if you're going to have a child, you have that responsibility. End of it.
To whom much is given, much is required.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us, and blessings to you to have many years to come of agitation and love and support and all that you do for this community. We really appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Alive and Well STL. We look forward to speaking with you again next week.
Alive and Well, STL.
We are grateful for your gift of time to this conversation. We encourage you to stay involved and get involved.
If you, your family, or your organization is interested in talking about how we better the well-being of the region, sign up for more information, join the conversation, log on to aliveandwellstl.com, and let's build a plan on how we can work together and improve our overall health and become alive and well. The Regional Health Commission, with Chief Executive Officer Robert Friend Jr., committed to providing a detailed review of change over the past decade in 14 leading health indicators for the city and county of St. Louis. The first decade review of health status report, an update to building a healthier St. Louis. Discover the narrative, the data, and celebrate the progress already made to improve healthcare access and reduce health disparities in our region. Learn more at stlrhc.org. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.